within today. You're my mind, I'ma be okay. A little love goes a long way. So I'm going within today. I'm going within today. You're my mind, I'ma be okay. A little love goes a long way. So I'm going within today.
Welcome back to the Going Within podcast. I'm your host, Reiki Master Sheena C. And I'm so delighted that you are here with us today. And if you've been walking this journey with me throughout season 2 so far, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for reflecting. Thank you for being a willing candidate to look at yourself a little deeper. Okay. And I also want to give a shout out to a few countries. There's a few countries that has joined us on the journey, and I want to just give you a very special shout out for listening. And so we got Bangladesh, okay? We've got Pakistan, we've got Brazil, Vietnam, Mexico has joined, Argentina, Ethiopia, Azerbaijan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I've never heard of this country before. Azerbaijan, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Egypt, Spain. We have France, United Kingdom, Guyana, Hong Kong, Italy, Jordan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Morocco, Oman, Senegal, Syrian Arab Republic, Turkey, Ukraine, and Uzbekistan. And I just want to say thank you so much for listening, and we appreciate you for lending your ear and also having the courage to join us on this wonderful journey of going within ourselves. Because, that's what we've been doing here, right? We're not just talking about changing our circumstances. We're talking about changing the relationship, right? We're changing the relationship that we have with ourselves. And today we're going somewhere very personal. So buckle up your seatbelts, okay? We're going into a place that nobody else can completely see. Your inner world, right? Your thoughts, your beliefs, the things that you may assume, your assumptions, your fears, your hopes, and most importantly, the conversations that you have with yourself. And today's episode is called Mastering Your Inner Dialogue. And I want you to really think about these words, okay? Mastering, not controlling every thought, or pretending that negative thoughts don't exist, because they do, okay? We're not forcing yourself to be positive 24 hours a day. That's unrealistic. But what we're doing is we're mastering our inner dialogue, okay? It means becoming aware of the way that you speak to yourself and learning how to choose a healthier response in that manner. Because here's something that I have realized, okay? We can spend years trying to change our lives while continuing to speak to ourselves in the exact same way that keeps us stuck. We can say, I want confidence, but internally we're saying, I'm probably going to mess this up. Okay, I'm probably going to mess this up. So instead of that, we can say things like, I want love, but internally what we're saying is, nobody's going to stay with me. We can say things like, I want success, but internally we're saying, I'm not good enough. And sometimes the biggest battle isn't happening around us per se, it's happening between our ears. Okay? So today we're going within, and I want you to listen to this episode differently, not just listen to my words, but listen to your own thoughts while you're listening. Can you do that for me? Because some of the things that I'm going to say may bring certain memories to the surface, might get some flashbacks. You may suddenly realize, hey, wow, I actually talk to myself like that, you know? And that's okay. Awareness isn't supposed to shame you. Awareness is supposed to give you a choice. So take a deep breath with me. Inhale and exhale. Again, inhale and slowly exhale. All right, and let's begin. So, let's start with something simple, okay? So you have an inner dialogue, right? What's an inner dialogue? Well, stuff that you say to yourself in your head. All of us do it. Sometimes it's loud, and sometimes it can be subtle. Sometimes we're not even aware that it's even happening. So you wake up in the morning and immediately your mind starts talking, right? It starts saying things like, oh my gosh, my body's aching. I'm tired. I don't feel like doing anything today. I have so much to do. I should have done that yesterday. Why did I say that to this person? What if this doesn't work? I wonder what they think about me. Things like that. And before you even gotten out of bed, your mind has already had a meeting. Your mind already had a meeting. And nobody invited you to that meeting. But you're sitting there participating in the conversation. And here's the interesting thing about that. We often believe that our thoughts simply just, they appeared out of nowhere, right? And sometimes they do. They do. But we also develop patterns, right? Our minds learn certain ways of interpreting life. And if you have spent years, criticizing yourself, criticism can become automatic eventually. And if you've spent years expecting disappointment, right, from people or situations, you may automatically look for what's going to go wrong, right? And also, if you've spent years trying to please people, trying to please everyone, right? You may automatically ask, what are these people going to think? Before asking, what do I actually want or think? And that's why changing your inner dialogue requires more than simply saying positive affirmations. You can say positive affirmations all day, but you must change your inner dialogue because that's the things that you say to yourself throughout the day. Right? So you have to become aware of the pattern underneath the thought. So let's say something doesn't go the way that you wanted. Maybe you made a mistake at work. Maybe someone didn't respond to a text message that you sent yesterday. Maybe you applied for something and you didn't get that thing. Maybe you ended a relationship, romantic relationship. The event itself happens, but then comes your interpretation of that event, right? You might say, like, that didn't work out. That's one interpretation. Or you might say, of course this happened. Nothing ever works out for me, right? That's a completely different interpretation, right? Now, it's the same event, but it's a completely different outlook, perspective of it, different inner dialogue. And that inner dialogue influences your emotions. Your emotions then influences your behavior. And then your behavior influences the direction of your life. So the conversation in your head matters. It matters a lot, okay? More than we tend to be aware of. Now, one of the most important questions I want you to ask yourself is the voice in my head helping me or is it hurting me? Because what happens is sometimes we confuse being, hard on ourselves with being responsible. Okay? We think if I criticize myself enough, I'll improve. But constant criticism doesn't always create the growth. Okay? Sometimes it creates fear. You become afraid to make mistakes. You become afraid to try. You become afraid to to be seen. You become afraid to take risk, afraid to disappoint people. And then what happens is eventually you start living a very small life because you're trying to avoid hearing that inner critic. Think about how you speak to yourself after making a mistake. Would you speak to your best friend that way? Imagine your friend comes to you and says, I made a mistake today. And you respond, you're so stupid. You always mess things up. You never get anything right. Most of us wouldn't talk to someone we love that way. Most. So why do we think that it's acceptable to talk to ourselves that way? Are you saying that you love the people that you love more than you love yourself? And I'm not saying you should never hold yourself accountable to things. That's not what I'm saying here. Accountability is very, very healthy and you should practice it. However, there's a difference between accountability and self-attack. Accountability sounds more like, I made a mistake, but what can I learn from this mistake? Right? Self-attack says, I made a mistake because I'm a failure. That's the difference. One has a more positive outlook, a solution-based outlook, and then the other just has a complete fixed way of thinking that has negative connotations. So you can see the difference. One addresses the behavior and the one attacks the identity. And that's powerful because when you repeatedly tell yourself, I'm lazy, I'm difficult, I'm bad at relationships, I'm unlucky, I'm not smart enough, and those downgrading things, you stop describing something you did. And then you start defining who you believe you are because of something you did. You understand what I'm saying? And once your mind accepts the identity, it starts looking for evidence. You become your own FBI. That's why we have to be very careful with the labels that we give ourselves. Okay? Instead of, I'm terrible with money, maybe you should try, hey, I'm learning how to manage my money better. For another example, instead of saying, I'm bad at relationships, maybe you should try, you know what? I'm learning how to create healthier relationships. Instead of saying, I always sabotage myself. It's better to say, look, I'm becoming more aware of the patterns that have held me back. That doesn't mean you're lying to yourself because you're actually addressing the issue. It means that you're leaving room for growth because you're addressing it in a way where you're questioning it instead of fixating yourself on that being true. You're questioning it so you can find a solution. Okay? Now, this is one of the biggest lessons I want you to take from today's episode. A thought, okay? A thought can feel true without actually being true. Okay? Now, I want you to let that sink in for a little bit because our minds can be extremely convincing. You can think, hey, these people don't like me. And suddenly you're upset. But did they actually say they don't like you? No. Your mind interpreted it. Your mind interpreted that way. Maybe they didn't text back, right? After you sent a text. Maybe they didn't see it, you know? Maybe they seemed like they were quiet. Maybe they walked past you and your brain created this story. You know, you came up with this internal dialogue of what happened, assumptions. You know, oh, they're upset with me. Oh, I did something wrong. Oh, they don't care. They don't like me. And now you're emotionally reacting to a story that may not even be real. You understand what I'm saying? This happens every single day. We create entire movies in our minds. And sometimes we're the director. We're the director, we're the producer, the writer, and the actor, and the audience. We're everything. A whole movie. You know? We created the whole thing. And then we're sitting there crying over a movie nobody else has ever seen. This is why becoming aware of your inner dialogue is so important. When a thought comes up, instead of immediately believing it, you must pause. You pause. You can even take a breath. Okay? Take a deep breath. You pause, you breathe. And then you ask, is this a fact or is this a story I'm telling myself? Right? Talk to yourself. You're not crazy. Talk to yourself. That's a powerful question. Is this a fact or is this a story that I'm telling myself? Let's practice. Okay, so we have a thought. I'm going to fail. That's the thought. Okay, then you ask, is that a fact? No. It's a prediction. Okay? You have another thought. Nobody understands me. Is that a fact? Probably not. It's a feeling. Right? Here's another one. You have a thought. I'm so behind in life. Is that a fact? According to the whole timeline? Or according to whose timeline? You see? Sometimes our inner dialogue becomes harsh because we're comparing our lives to an imaginary schedule. We think that by this age I should have this and that. By now I should be there and here. Everybody else is ahead and come on. But who created this timeline? Who said that your life had to unfold exactly the way someone else did? You guys are not living the same lives. Your journey is your journey. Their journey is theirs. And you cannot create peace while constantly putting yourself on trial. That is the thief of peace when you compare yourself. You are not on the same timeline as everyone else. You have your own. A friend of yours may get married today, have a baby next year at the age of 25. And you're like, wow, she got married young, good age. She's having a baby at 26. That's a good first time to have a child. But why? How come I don't have that? This is the inner dialogue that we have with ourselves. How come am I behind them? I should have a family by now and kids, and I'm 37. I should already have. I'm behind. You know what I'm saying? According to who? According to who? Who set the standard? Who set the timeline of how and when everything should be done? What if you haven't found the right partner yet? What if you haven't, you know what I'm saying? You haven't achieved certain goals that are needed before you decide to settle down and get married and have children. Your life is different than everyone else's. It's unique. Comparing your life to other people's life is only going to bring you depression and sadness because it's not natural. Your timeline is yours. Everything that has to happen in your timeline will happen when it's supposed to. Period. Okay? So you can relax. And let's go a little bit deeper. When did Or let me ask it this way. Where did your inner dialogue come from? Where did it come from? Because you weren't born criticizing yourself. You didn't come out the womb talking about, oh, why are my hands so tiny? Why are my toes so small? You didn't come out comparing and criticizing yourself. You weren't born thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm too much. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not smart. You didn't come out saying these things to yourself. You learned most of these messages. Maybe from family, maybe from relationships, from school, from society, maybe from rejection, maybe from experiences where you felt embarrassed, where you felt ignored, abandoned, compared, or even misunderstood. And sometimes someone says something, right, to us one time, and we carry it for 20 years. 20 years. Think about that. Someone may have told you, you'll never amount to anything. And they may have forgotten that they even said it. But you remember. Someone may have called you too sensitive, and now you question your emotions. They might have told you you're difficult, and now you constantly shrink yourself because you don't want to be too difficult for people. They might have told you that you're not smart enough. You're not smart enough. And now every time that you have to make an important decision, you doubt yourself. That's the power of words, especially when we are young. But here's the beautiful part of all of this mess. When you learned what you learned, you also now know that it can be unlearned. Okay? What you learned can be unlearned. You don't have to spend the rest of your life repeating someone else's opinion of you. Their voice may have become part of your inner dialogue because you adopted that, yes, but it doesn't have to remain in that place, in that space, in your mind. And sometimes healing is recognizing the things like, that's not actually my voice. Healing is like realizing that that's something I was taught. That's something that I experienced. That's something that I believed because I didn't know any better. And then you get to choose again. You take back your choice, your power of choice. You can now choose. Right? Sometimes we spend so much time arguing with our own thoughts. A thought comes to your mind, hey, you're not good enough. And then you respond, yes, I am. Right? Then another thought comes, but remember when you messed up that one time? Yeah, but... And suddenly you're having a debate inside your own head. It's you against you, baby. Exhausting. Completely exhausting. Sometimes the goal isn't to argue with the thought, okay? The goal is to observe the thought, observe it without giving it authority, though. You may say, that's an old thought. That's fear talking to me right now. That's insecurity. I ain't gonna pay it no mind. That's my mind trying to protect me. I don't have to act on this thought in particular. That's different. Okay? You're not fighting yourself. You're witnessing yourself. And that's where emotional maturity usually begins. Because you start to realize, I can have a thought without becoming the thought. I can feel afraid without allowing fear to make every decision for me. I can feel insecure without treating insecurity as a fact. I can feel angry without becoming destructive. I can feel disappointed without deciding my life is over, right? That's mastery, not perfection, mastery. Sometimes the easiest way to change your inner dialogue is to change the questions that you're asking yourself. So instead of asking yourself, what's wrong with me? You can ask, what am I experiencing right now? Instead of asking, why do I always do this stupid crap? You can ask yourself, what pattern am I noticing here? There's a pattern, and I'm noticing this. There's a pattern here. What is this? Instead of, why can't I get my life together? Maybe you can ask, what's one thing I can do today that moves me forward in my life? Instead of, what if everything goes wrong? You can ask, what if I can handle whatever happens? That's a completely different conversation that you're having now. And notice something. You're not pretending everything is perfect, right? That's not what you're doing. You're simply moving your mind from hopelessness to possibility. That's what I want for you. You, the one who's listening to this episode right now. That's what I want for you. Not fake positivity. Not pretending you're never scared, right? Not walking around saying everything is amazing. Everything is awesome, right? No. While your life is falling apart, there's nobody that's saying everything is awesome, everything is amazing. Ain't nobody doing that while your life is falling apart. That is fake, right? It's not awesome. Damn it, it's not awesome right now. But it's gonna be okay though. That's the shift in mentality. It's falling apart right now. The house is burning, but you know what? I'm scared, but I also know that everything is gonna be all right eventually, and I'm gonna get through this. That's the shift in mindset, right? So we want honesty, but we also want compassion. So you can say, this is hard, but you can also say, I can handle hard things though. I'm disappointed. Well, but this disappointment doesn't define my future. I made a mistake. But you know what? I can learn from this mistake for sure. I learned my lesson. You can say, I'm afraid. But you can also say that fear doesn't have to make my decisions for me. And that's mature inner dialogue. That's someone who is on a very amazing healing journey. They're moving forward. They're not allowing their circumstances to keep them stuck by being stuck in the negativity of the circumstance. They are aware of the circumstance at hand. However, they also know that there's always a positive outlook. There's always a positive outcome. If you think that way, so shall it be, right? You become spiritually mature. So what does mastering your inner dialogue actually look like? Well, it looks like catching yourself, I would say, like you're falling and you're catching yourself. It looks like noticing when you're being unnecessarily cruel to yourself. It looks like questioning your assumptions, like giving yourself room to make mistakes because you're human. It looks like replacing the shame with curiosity. It looks like, what can I learn from this instead of what's wrong with me? It looks like understanding that growth is rarely linear. Some days you're going to feel confident, okay? You're going to feel extremely confident. And then other days you're going to question everything. Some days you'll feel extremely strong. And in other days, you'll need to remind yourself who you are. And that's okay. The goal isn't to never struggle. Struggle comes with life. The goal is to stop becoming your own enemy every time you struggle. Like there's nobody that could beat you up better than you. You know what I mean? You don't have to do this. You could change it. You can change it today. I want you to imagine your mind as a home, right? And every thought that enters isn't necessarily a guest, you have to invite to dinner. So some thoughts can knock on the door. You can look through the window and say, no, thank you. You understand what I'm saying? A Jehovah's Witness. Like, no, I'm good. You don't have to let every thought move in. You don't have to decorate the room for every fear. You don't have to give every insecurity a permanent address. Some thoughts can simply pass through, man. They can just pass through. Watch them pass by like a happy little cloud and let them go. According to Bob Ross. Rest in peace to Bob Ross. Right? So, before we close today, I want you to sit with yourself for a few minutes. And I want you to sit with a few questions. And don't rush to answer them at all, by all means. Just let them sit with you. Okay? I want to ask you a few questions, and I want you to just sit with it. You can pause and play, whatever's best for you, more convenient. So the first question is, what is the most common thing that you say to yourself when you make a mistake? Okay? You can write that down. You can use that for journal entries. The second question is, what do you say to yourself when someone rejects you? The third question is, what do you say to yourself when you look in the mirror? The fourth question is, what do you say to yourself when you're afraid? And here's the biggest question. Would you speak to someone you love the way that you speak to yourself? And if the answer is no, maybe it's time for change. Not because you're broken, but because you're growing. Your inner dialogue doesn't have to remain the same just because it's something that's familiar. Okay? You can choose a new conversation. You can become the person who says, I trust myself to figure this out. I don't have to know everything today. I am allowed to make mistakes. I can learn. I can change. I can begin again. I don't have to believe every negative thought that enters my mind. And most importantly, I will not abandon myself in difficult moments. Excuse me. That's the conversation I want you to take with you. Okay? Because the world is going to have enough opinions about you. People are going to misunderstand you. People are going to judge you. People are going to project their own fears onto you. You don't need to become another person who tears you down. There's people in the world already doing that, honey. You don't need to be an extra person. Be that one person that brings you up. Be the safe place inside your own mind. Take a deep breath with me. Inhale and exhale. And I want you to say to yourself, I am listening to myself differently now. Again, say it. I am listening to myself differently now. One more time. Let's go. I am listening to myself differently now. And then say this. I am learning to speak to myself with truth, compassion, and courage. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And remember, you don't have to control every thought. You just have to become more intentional about which thoughts that you give your power to. Because your thoughts influence your words influence your emotions, and your emotions influence your action. And your actions help create the life that you're living, the environment that you're in. So if you want to change what you're creating, sometimes you have to start with the conversation nobody else can hear. And that's the conversation within. So thank you so much, guys, for spending this time with me. Thank you for going within with me. And until next time, go within, grow within, and glow from within. I am your Reiki Master, Sheena C. I want you to stay safe, stay healthy, stay humble. I love you. Namaste. And I'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.
I'm going within today. You're my mind, I'ma be